And we are back on CBS Sports HQ, presented by Capital One. Vegas insider Todd Fuhrman joins us as we sit just a little over 2 months from the start of the 2022 NFL season. Todd, let's talk NFC East today. Begin with the Dallas Cowboys. The over-under for the Cowboys wins in 2022, 10.5. How does that look to you?
Yeah, and I mean, this is a team with a ton of star power, pun intended here, and you can understand why there's a high level of optimism about this Cowboys team getting to 11 wins and repeating as division champs at a price right around plus $1.15. But I think this is a team that takes a step back this year. When you look at some of the moves they made this offseason, we know we're predicated by salary cap constraints. You part ways with Amari Cooper, and a lot of people just fine with CeeDee Lamb stepping into that true number 1 spot. But I'm not sure Michael Gallup is a bona fide number 2. Now, the Cowboys made a renewed commitment to him, signing him to a 5-year deal north of $50 million. But more importantly for the Cowboys is you have some defections along that offensive line. You let La'el Collins go, you bring in Tyler Smith from Tulsa, and I think Smith is a little bit of a project here, not a guy that I anticipate stepping in right from day one. Meanwhile, on the defensive side, I have some more questions than I do answers about this group. We know Leighton Vander Esch was brought back on a 1-year deal. They made a 1-year commitment to Dante Fowler. DeMarcus Lawrence gets a multi-year deal. And while you talk about Micah Parsons, he is as disruptive as you're going to find at the linebacker spot. I have some concerns about this team in the secondary. You look at the schedule in front of you as well, and it really does this team no favors. Fortunately for the Cowboys, this is a group I think that can win 10 games and still find enough to get the division home, given some of the parity we have in the NFC from top to bottom. But I'm going to go under 10.5 wins. I think we're talking about this win total closer to the season. This price will be widely available at 10.
Next on down the line, we got the Philadelphia Eagles. The total there is 9, which seems like they won't be bad, but really not sure how good they're going to be. How do you see that number? How do you see the Eagles?
I mean, this is a team right now that's the it thing in the NFC. It feels like people are running over the men, women, and children, much like those Christmas specials, to try and bet the Eagles to win the division, bet them over their win total, and more importantly, bet them to win the NFC. I'm a little bit more of the buyer beware. When you look at this win total at 9, shaded to the over, I would normally make a case to go under, but I can't do so right now because I think this price is only going to climb with the optimism getting ratcheted up. They still have a quarterback that's extremely limited in Jalen Hurts. I just haven't seen enough from him and his ability to distribute the football that leads me to believe that suddenly Philadelphia can go even deeper than what we saw a season ago. They were a real beneficiary of a soft schedule last year and an improbable playoff run. But this will be a group that adds in A.J. Brown. I think Philadelphia needed to get themselves another playmaker on the outside, but I worry about his durability opposite Devontae Smith. I love what this team has defensively, but I think this is a Philadelphia team that could fall victim to their own high expectations. Miles Sanders' comments earlier this week, reminiscent of Vince Young when he talked about the Eagles as a dream team of sorts. Not quite sure Philadelphia is going to light the world on fire. So for me, I'm going to abstain for now. But if this number does get to 9.5 later on this summer, I will look to go under the total.
Well, at least the Eagles and Cowboys have won the division recently. The last time the New York Giants won the division was 2011. Since then, each of their division rivals have won it 3 times. The total is 7 for the G-Men in 2022. How do you see the boys in blue?
Yeah, Gotham City has not been home to good NFL football, either in the AFC with the New York Jets or what we've seen from the Giants over the last couple of years. But I think there's reason to be optimistic about the way the Giants are trending. I like the hire of Brian Daboll, getting an offensive mind in there. We saw the impact he had as an offensive coordinator working with Josh Allen. And while I'm not going to put Daniel Jones' talent on that same level, I think Jones knows he's playing for his next contract, and you always love a quarterback operating with a chip on his shoulder. They were banged up at the receiver position last year. I think you'll get more out of Kenny Golladay along with some of the other difference makers on the outside. Let's hope Saquon Barkley can stay healthy. But more importantly for this Giants team, I think their defense was a little bit undersold a season ago. And now you bring in a much more aggressive defensive coordinator in Wink Martindale that wants to scheme up blitzes. He's going to do some unique things to try and disguise coverages and protect a secondary that was vulnerable to the big play. But it's the offensive line acquisitions and Mark Lewinsky and John Feliciano that they brought in. Daboll, a lot of familiarity with Feliciano. I think that'll pay dividends. I think this Giants team has all the sleeper potential in the world. And if you're going to give me the opportunity to go over 7 and take plus $1.05 to do so, I'm going to bet this one. It's one of my favorite win totals in the division.
All right, make a lot of people happy in the New York metropolitan area. Let's finish up with Washington. The Commanders, they're calling them now. They just re-signed Terry McLaurin, and the rest of the news has been not so good, mostly off the field or in Congress. How do you think they're going to fare on the field in 2022? Total 7.5.
Yeah, you wonder about this team, and if things start to get sideways early, if all the off-field stuff manifests through the locker room and on the field. Carson Wentz hasn't exactly been the model of stability. We thought it could be a perfect marriage given his familiarity with Frank Reich, and things soured relatively quickly late in the season because Wentz couldn't control the locker room. Enter a Washington Commanders situation where we know that there's not exactly the most harmonious group all pulling in the same direction, especially on the coaching staff. I look at the deal with Terry McLaurin, and rightfully so. I'm glad he was rewarded, one of the league's more unheralded wideouts. But can Carson Wentz get him the football enough? Getting Curtis Samuel healthy back in the fold, I think, will help. It gives them a little bit of a different playmaker. And when you look at Antonio Gibson, I like his ongoing development. But what was most disappointing last year for the Commanders was a defense that never lived up to expectations. Sure, with a healthy Chase Young, this group should be better. But there's something that just feels off about the Washington football team. And as much respect as I have for Ron Rivera as a head coach, I'm not sure I'm willing to buy Commander stock and expect this team to get to 8-9. I'm going to go under 7.5 for Washington's win total.
All right, the NFC East, it's been a bit of a hot potato at the top over the years, or maybe musical chairs if you're the Giants, because the chair keeps getting pulled out from under you. I'm not asking you who's going to win the division, but I am going to ask you what team's odds do you like best heading into 2022?
So it's all about price, and you had on it perfectly, Ross, talking about some of the numbers and what they suggest. The Dallas Cowboys right now at plus 115, giving slightly less than a 50% chance to win the division. We talked a little bit about the Eagles and how this price has been on the move. Sure, if you could get Philadelphia earlier this offseason at 3.5 to 1 when it was widely available, a much different bet than we're talking about right now for Nick Sirianni's bunch at plus 185. So this is a division, I think, where there's a lot of parity. You have a lot of questions and no truly elite quarterbacks, maybe other than Dak Prescott. So for me, I'm going to take a shot with the New York Giants and hope fresh faces, especially on the sidelines, are able to pay dividends for what we're going to see from this team week to week. They were a downright dumpster fire the last couple of years for Joe Judge. Players were optimistic about the energy that he brought to the franchise. It never manifested itself where it mattered most in the win column. But if this team can stay healthy, there are a number of difference makers for them on offense. They have a defense that, in my opinion, was a little bit disrespected for extended stretches last year. And if they can continue to raise their level of play, getting more to guys like Matt Breida and Richie James, who came in on short-term deals, looking for players that they got in the draft on the offensive line, or Kayvon Thibodeau to be a disruptive source of sacks along that D-line. I think this is a Giants team that can surprise some people. I like the idea of grabbing Big Blue at 8 to 1 as a little bit of a value prospect.
All right, Todd Fuhrman, our Vegas insider. Todd, thank you very much. Looking forward to the NFC East in 2022. Here is a recap of Todd's picks. He wants to go under on the Cowboys, 10.5 total. Not ready to pick on the Eagles at 9 right now, although he is high on Philly in the division. He's even more high on the Giants to go over the 7, and Giants are actually his plus 800 pick to win the division.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.